for as long as I can remember, games always had difficulty settings. At least certain games did. So there's this debate going around, again, about whether or not games should have difficulty options. And I think the reason why it even cropped back up in conversation is because there are some people, specifically game journalists, who believe that boss fights shouldn't be a thing, or you should have the option to skip them.
Really?
Now, this is an older article, but since the topic is still being discussed, I figured that I could weigh in. And the article says, could we be about to enter a skippable boss fight utopia? I thought this was, the first time I heard about this, I thought it was a joke. I legit thought it was a joke, because what would be the, why? There are a lot of people that are arguing that a game should be experienced exactly as the creator of the game intended it to be experienced. Games like Dark Souls or Bloodborne are designed around challenge and you persevering or failing and doing it over again. And honestly, if you've played any video game where you have boss fights, the struggle is part of the narrative, and you lowering the difficulty or taking that out completely defeats the entire challenge. When my husband and I were playing Path of Exile 2 and we got to the wolf boss, oh my freaking god, bro. I have never been so mad that I had to just sit down and breathe for a second and then get up. Like, there's been a lot of situations where I've had that, but not in a long time. It's been a while since I played a game like that. And then you beat this thing, there's usually 2 levels to the boss. You have the level here, which is hard enough, and you're like, all right, I got this. And then his HP comes back, and he turns into another version of himself, and then shit just gets freaking ridiculous. And I think they also bump up the difficulty a little bit when there are 2 people playing, like if you're co-opting or something. So we had to beat the boss by ourselves, and it was still hard enough. And if you didn't have like the supersized HB flask thing, you're just guzzling those freaking life flashes everywhere you go. And it took a while. It took a while to beat this boss, and I was so angry. And when I finally beat him, I was like, yes! Yes!
That's an idiot.
Yeah, like, there's something about when there is something that you cannot pass, and you know in order for you to get to the rest of the game, you have to pass this. There's no skipping it. That's part of the danger. It doesn't make sense that you fight a boss, and the boss is supposed to be dangerous. It's supposed to be a boss, and you can just skip it. I just don't understand why that's even part of the narrative right now, or why people are pushing for that. Especially when a big reason they even put these boss fights in the first place is so that your character can learn how to overcome adversity. It's a good teaching lesson for the people playing as well. So I think bosses are very instrumental in that regard when it comes to gaming design or stories or interactive stories like we have with gaming. If you breeze through a game like Dark Souls on easy mode or something, you're not actually experiencing the game. You're basically playing a watered down version of it. All the anxiety that everyone else has to face, you're going through that, and you hear people say, oh, well, I've beat the game. There's no way to know whether or not they actually beat the game or they just went on easy mode, because the thing is, you have no way of finding that out. The other person can say they beat the game, you're a hardcore gamer and you beat the game, you both beat the game, but it's not the same, you know what I mean? And maybe it's just me, but I was always of the idea that games were skill-based. Like, here's a thought, and this is gonna sound insane. If you're not willing to engage in a game's challenge, then, I don't know, maybe that particular game just isn't for you. You're welcome to sit back and play some cozy games and farm simulators if that's more your speed. And trust me, I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, but then dumbing it down for everybody else that chooses for games to be that way doesn't really seem like a fair trade, and it can put off a lot of people.
I don't know how y'all do shit where you from, but let me tell you something, where I'm from, we don't do shit like that.
So you'll have some people that will make the argument that, well, games should be for everyone, right? It's a form of art and storytelling and entertainment. So what about disabled people that want to play Elden Ring or other games like it, you know, or people that don't have enough free time? They work a lot, they have a lot of kids, you know, should they be locked out of experiencing the game because they don't have the time to allot to actually perfecting the skill to pass the game on the mode it was intended to be played at? Like, if someone works 10-hour shifts, you know, they're dealing with chronic illness, or they're about to freaking die, like, what about them? What are they gonna do? Or the other argument they might make is that, well, just because something has certain difficulty or requires a certain skill set doesn't always mean it's quality. And on top of that, don't these developers developers want more people to play their games. If the game is locking out people who only have a certain skill set or don't have the time to play it because it's too difficult, it's not going to sell as well because other people can't play it because they're too stupid or too weak to be able to play it like the average gamer. But the strongest counterpoint to this purist argument is that if someone plays a certain game on easy mode, well, it doesn't impact somebody else's experience of playing it on the original difficulty. They might say, well, my lower difficulty doesn't erase your sense of accomplishment, so why should you care? Now, I've played some games on easy mode, like some racing games, just to try it out to see what the easy mode was. And what ends up happening is that the game is way too easy and you're winning everything and you don't want to play the game anymore because it's too easy. There's no sense of accomplishment. It just feels like I'm not getting the bang for my buck. Sometimes I might choose easy mode on something when I'm trying to get the hang of it or practice, but I won't play the entire game on that. I'll start it out like that and just get a feel of it and say, okay, I think I'm ready to go in now. This is how we do this without people trying to crush you. I get it. Granted, I usually do that when I'm little. I don't really do that anymore. I usually start off on normal mode, and then if I want some replayability, then I'll go back and play on hard mode, especially if there's some kind of incentive to do so, like with Shadow of the Colossus. We can argue that some games like Horizon Zero Dawn or Mass Effect or The Witcher that are heavy narrative titles could offer difficulty options specifically because the story is a big part of it, and people might want to experience the story but not be stuck up in trying to do battles and stuff. And then you have other games like Cuphead where the challenge is part of the game's identity. We can even agree that accessibility doesn't always have to mean the same thing as, oh, make a game easy. I think a decent middle ground that studios would focus on is like specific features like aim assist, reaction time settings, control mapping, and all that other stuff, rather than just simply lowering the enemy's health or making your hits super critical every time you dish them out. And that's just referring to the difficulty. But what about the boss fights and skipping them? So there are people out there who want there to be easy difficulty, normal settings, and you can probably excuse that. But making boss fights skippable is a whole other situation because you're already making it easy. Why are people now pushing for boss fights to be skippable? So let's hear what one of them have to say. So in John Walker's Kotaku article, it starts off by saying, in a gaming world increasingly built out of Souls-likes, where the concept of the boss battle becomes a central game mechanic, some of us have been left behind. Oh, how boo-hoo. I've always hated boss fights, and while I have no interest in convincing anyone else to agree with me, I have long lamented the lack of accommodation made for the many other people who are already with me. But sniff the air, something's a-changin'. We're talking about people who are saying they're left behind. I mean, you don't see other games like cozy games bumping up the difficulty for other people because they're cozy games. That's what you want. Or you have games that are specifically interactive. But then you have people being like, well, I hate boss fights, so they just shouldn't have them, or there should be an option to skip them. The entire point of a video game, first of all, is interaction, right? It's not a movie. It's not a book. Games are built around you doing something to move the story forward. And boss fights are a test of everything you've learned up until that point. It makes you feel like, hey, all the loot, all the gear, all the stuff that I've acquired, now I can see how I fare against something to show me whether or not I have something of value or I've moved up in the ranks. Your mechanics, your timing, your resource management, even your patience. Like when you skip the boss thing because it's too hard, you're basically saying like, oh, well, the game doesn't matter, or I don't want the game. What is the point of even moving up in the game then? What are you doing? What is the whole point? If you want to get just the cutscenes of the game, then I guess you could just get the cutscenes, but then people will come out here and be like, well, I played the game based on the cutscenes, when that's clearly not the case. I don't understand it. Like, people will straight up buy games and say they don't want to play the game that they bought. Then why did you buy the game, though? It's like getting a horse game and then deciding that, riding the horse and learning to ride it's too hard. I don't want to ride the horse. I want the option to skip riding the horse or taming the horse when that's a whole part of the game's narrative. So why would you want the option to even skip that? And this person starting off by saying this, like, oh, I hated boss fights. You're basically saying you don't enjoy this mechanic, so therefore I'm in need of personal accommodation. There's a flaw in it, so fix it for me so people like me that don't want to put any work or effort in can play it and then say that we did and brag and then have a leg to stand up when I'm cupping my balls and talking down to gamers who think they know everything. It's an excuse for them to try and be a part of a community that they did not earn the rights to be a part of. Honestly, this whole article is kind of cringe. However, while idly fiddling through the game settings to see what was what, I saw a toggle and I absolutely was not expecting it, a boss skip option. In 2017, I wrote one of the most controversial articles of my career, a piece for which I received literal death threats alongside hundreds of more banal insults and wishes for my imminent demise. That's not nice. Why do people do that? Look, as much as you could be a loathsome person or just spewing stuff that people disagree with, I don't ever think that you should be getting those kinds of threats for something like that. Unless you hurt somebody, like, you bullied and destroyed someone's life, or a kid or something like that. Like what happened to that monster, had a DUI, or she was driving under the influence, which, redundant, I'm saying that, I know, but she flew into like this building with these kids in it, and she's laughing about it and trying to make it seem like she didn't do it. That I can understand. I could totally understand it, because you literally took someone's life. But anyway, or destroyed it. And then he says, as someone battle-hardened by Gamergate, really, dude? It takes quite a bit for the scale of a backlash to take me by surprise. And while I knew it would piss some people off, I didn't predict the volume. I wrote an article suggesting a boss fight should be skippable. Imagine my temerity. Let's see it. Okay, so this was the article he was talking about. Oh no, when's Father's Day? I almost forgot about it. Crap, gotta find a gift for my daddy. But anyway, now Ubi's opened the door. Can we have our skip boss fight button? Hooray for the riffraff. He looks like the guy from Community. Like this dude, this guy looks way better than him, but tiny bit of resemblance. Like he looks like he could be his older brother or father or something. So I guess in this article he said Ubisoft made a fascinating announcement this week. This is from 2017. They revealed that the latest Assassin's Creed is to add a discovery tour mode, removing all the combat and challenges from the game to let players just freely experience their in-depth recreation of ancient Egypt. It's fascinating to me because it's a big deal, and goodness me, it shouldn't be a big deal because games should be delighted to include modes that remove all their difficulty and challenge, and players should cheer when they hear about it. Why would players cheer about that? Look, I get the appeal, but all I keep thinking about when I hear people say things like that is, imagine going to track and field, right? And you're like, man, I could just watch generated content, AI generated content of people running. So, or what they would look like if they did run track and field, or, that kind of feels like instead of participating, I know it's a bad analogy, but instead of participating, like, okay, well, what if I didn't? What if I just generated it so I could make it see what it looks like if I did it? Kind of takes away the skill, of running or training, because now you can just watch it generated, or just not run, or instead of participating in a game, you could just skip this and generate yourself doing it, which kind of like the same thing. Like, I get it with Assassin's Creed because of the world. I get it, like, it's kind of like a creative mode kind of situation. But if all games start doing this, I think it sets a bad precedent, because it's almost like, if there's a puzzle game and someone hates puzzles, they expect the developers to be all like, well, there's an auto-solve button, so you don't have to do the puzzle. Like, why? What? Not every medium must be contorted, if that's a word, to fit every individual's preferences. Like, sometimes you're simply not the target audience, and that's perfectly fine. You can find games for you. That's what I do. If I see a game that's not really my cup of tea, I find another game that is. Why is that thing holding a foot? What this journalist is whining about is personal inconvenience and taste. But he's masquerading it as a human rights issue, which is so freaking weird.
Look, she's crying. Do you hear her crying? Like we care. I don't give a...
Dudes like this, they want so badly to be a part of the world, but they want all that, right? They want the story, the cutscenes, the social currency of having played the game, and I say played very loosely, but they don't want to engage with the interactive challenge, which is the whole point of the gaming, which is the whole soul of gaming. They're not interactive novels, they're games. There's a difference. There is an actual genre on Steam, or a genre in gaming that is not really gaming. It's called an interactive novel. That is what you're looking for, not a game. If you feel left behind with certain games, that's a you problem. And I do understand why gamers are mad about this, because it's contributing to the infantilization of gaming culture. And like I said, they're trying to be a part of the cool club. It's kind of like, it puts me in that mind of the story I told. I've told it several times on my videos, where you have this little kid or little girl that's like, oh, she's playing with all the big boys and she wants to be a part of it. Or this other kid, this fat boy kid, who was like, oh, I want to be a part of it. Apparently, it was too hard for them and they kept crying and they're like, oh, I want to play. And their parents were like, let him play. Let him do this. Change the rules. Do this. And the person whatever we were doing, however we were playing the game, he would change it or she would change it to be like, well, I want this. No, when we tag you, you're supposed to be out of the game. You lost. No, I didn't. I'm still playing, like, bitch. So now no one wants to play with you and you've essentially broken the game. You've ruined the game and you've ruined the experience for the rest of us. I know it's a little bit different and people might not think off the bat that if it's an individual thing where people have the option to choose and it doesn't affect everybody else. It actually does though, because in the long term, other game developers are going to say, well, I guess we should start doing that too. And then everyone's going to say, well, that game was easy. And then it's just going to cause a whole mess. It's going to dumb down modern gaming. Dare I say it, but a lot of modern games are already dumbed down. There's some games that are legit broken with certain things, but most of these games that offer the boss fights and stuff, that's an integral part of the story. You're supposed to play the hero. The hero is supposed to struggle. And when he finally beats the boss, you're supposed to feel what they feel. It's like what movies are doing today, where they're trying to get a broader audience and they're watering down the entertainment. And then now they're wondering why all their movies are flopping and nobody wants this entertainment that they're offering. Even if a movie is good, people will not give it a chance in the movie theaters. It's very rare that that will happen, because everything has become so PC and watered down and boring. If all these people want is a story, you have something online for that every single one of us has taken advantage of. You know what they're called? They're called playthroughs or cutscenes. People will upload cutscenes of movies for people to watch, like the footage I'm showing right here. There's people who've uploaded this very cutscene and you can experience the story that way. If there's a game that I don't want to play, but I want to know the general story for it, and I know I'll never play that game because it's not my genre of game that I would choose, then I will watch a playthrough of it. And then once you normalize skipping content, it doesn't stop at boss fights. I promise you, it will not. I joked about this earlier, but you're gonna get people skipping past puzzles and skipping past exploration, skipping the platforming. You're gonna end up with interactive movies disguised as games, which is already a thing, by the way. I've gone on Steam and I've seen games where I'm like, oh, this looks actually awesome. And when you're playing it, it's like 99% story, which is, I'm not saying there's something wrong with the story, but the way they made it look in the trailers, you thinking that, okay, you're gonna get some gameplay, there's barely any gameplay in it. It's like, oh, just click a button while this is happening. But if you don't click the button, it will still happen anyway. It's just going to take a lot longer for it to happen. Like, what? And then they're going to start doing that with everything. It does set a very dangerous precedent, because now people, actual gamers who want that experience, it's going to be few and far between before we find it. If you even look at the Telltale games, those aren't bad experiences. But if you've played any of these games, you will know, wow, this doesn't really... It's not really a game in the classical sense. They're just glorified branching narratives or stories, because it's basically what they are. I guess I'll close with this because I don't want to make this a big old video. I guess we can talk about it. What do you guys think about this? Is it going to be a big deal if you can skip boss fights? I believe, from my personal view, that games are built on player agency and mechanical participation with your fingers and whatnot. And if you take away all of the hard parts because they're just inconvenient for you, you don't really have a game, right? It's just a cutscene at that part. And the whole point of gaming, it's the struggle, it's the frustration, it's the eventual victory, and that's what makes it rewarding. And I feel like people who are entitled are trying to put their feelers out there into everything. You're seeing it in movies. They're like, oh, we don't like that. That doesn't make us feel good. So change it. Make it be like this. Or they'll see a storyline for a franchise that has worked very well, and they'll say, no, that's offensive. I personally and my 1% of friends don't like this. No, that's not allowed. Change it and stuff it up my ass. And like, who even are you people? Who asked you to come here? If you don't like the game or the way it is, don't play the freaking game. Aren't these the same types of people who are like, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. You don't want it, don't play it. Not every medium is gonna bend to your personal taste. And I like how people call this gatekeeping. Some gatekeeping is good. Some gatekeeping is actually about respecting the integrity of the art form. What's next? Oh, you go to a dance competition. Oh, it's too hard. I don't want to dance. Can we all have sit and explain what we would be doing if we were gonna dance and we could? Really, bro? I cannot believe this is actually a real thing and a real conversation that people are having. But you know what? We're still having conversation, which is good. If we're going to protect things or defend a specific art form or explain why certain things shouldn't happen or why they should, we should know why. We should have our points ready as to why that is. So what do you guys think? What is an excuse aside from you just shouldn't? Instead of saying that, you could tell these people, hey, this is why this doesn't happen. You shouldn't even have to, though. That's the messed up part about it. You shouldn't even have to. Even just saying that out loud now, I realize that it's moot. Because it's not a conversation you should be, like, even trying to explain it makes me feel much more stupid for even making the attempt of explaining it, because it shouldn't have to be explained. Anyways, hopefully this person can get out of their own ass and go on that section of the internet in that corner of the world where you have cozy games that fit your geriatric lifestyle and mentality, and that's gonna be easy for you. You can enjoy it that way, or just watch the freaking cutscenes that people upload on YouTube. Those are there. If you want, you can also donate to those people to give them more incentive to upload the cutscenes or the stories of the games that you don't feel like playing up on their channel. Go help them out that way. That's a great cause.
Hold on, time out. You can skip boss fights? So Kojima came out and said that there's going to be an easy mode for Death Stranding 2, which lets you get a visual novel of what would happen instead of just beating the boss. And it's aimed at people who are not experienced in action games but are interested in the story. I would have to beat it. I would not feel good about beating the game if I just, like, skipped the boss fights altogether.